Good morning. Welcome to Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. Thanks for waking up with us this morning. We've got the Masters set to tee off in a few hours from now. Can't wait to get to that. Of course, our coverage continues all day long, but we're live talking baseball and fantasy baseball here on this Saturday morning. Craig Mish along with Joe Pisapia back in the house, filling in today for George, who's got a couple of shows off here over the next couple of weeks. We gave Joe some NIL money to come in and do the shows today. He's the hot quarterback here, back doing the show with me. Joe and I have worked together for decades here, and we're back doing another fantasy baseball show. What's going on, man?
Well, I always think about the famous duos in the history of the universe, right? You got, Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp. You've got Laurel and Hardy. You've got Sonny and Cher and Mish and Pisapia. I think we're somewhere in that range. A little bit of all of the above, I think, is what we are. But yes, decades now. We're going back several, and it's good to still be with you talking baseball. Look at us, still employed after all these years. I think that is crazy. The bigger over-under that's hit. I think that's the one that really came through.
I mean, they keep depositing money into my account. I don't know how this keeps happening. I mean, every 2 weeks I get money for doing this. It's crazy. I don't know how this all worked out. But anyway, Joe and I will dive in. By the way, Sam is our producer today. Once again, he did not get any NIL money. He just has to be here today, and that's just the way that. Yeah, sorry, Sam. Let's start off with some of the hot stories. By the way, right here at the top, I know we're going to do headlines here, but Mike Trout, man, another home run yesterday. He is now tied for the lead with Judge and Tyler Soderstrom. Those are the 6 home run leaders in baseball. But the hottest team in baseball, the San Francisco Giants. Who had this one coming? The Giants are playing fantastic at the start of the season. We kind of wrote them off before the season even started. Spencer Strider, if you have him and you drafted him, get ready to plug him in. If you have a weekly league, I don't know about next week, but it's coming. They say that he could start at the end of next week, so keep an eye on that. We'll talk about the American League West. The coaches were named for Team USA for the World Baseball Classic. Also, the general manager and coach was named Mike Hill, my guy who used to be the GM of the Marlins, now working for Major League Baseball. Mark DeRosa is going to be the manager. Skip Schumacher, former manager, was named to the staff, which is interesting, by the way, because usually, Joe, if you're going to be a manager, you're not going to be a bench coach on Team USA. So I got to ask Skip what's going on there. That's interesting. Andy Pettit, Matt Holliday, Schumacher and Holliday are buddies. Really good coaches for Team USA. They're going to be stacked without a doubt. But all right, well, Joe, we can go a number of different directions here. I mean, I suppose that, Wilmer Flores and the Giants, that is sort of the surprise story, I guess, at the start of the year. They're getting really good pitching. They're getting some good hitting, too. The Giants are not a team that we generally look at their roster and on fantasy draft day say, give me all the Rockies, give me all the high elevation A's or Diamondbacks. So, I'm going to guess a small sample here before I'm really ready to dive in and then kind of take it from there. But we do have to say, hey, look, these head-to-head leagues where the Giants carried you the first couple of weeks, got to give them a high five.
No, absolutely. I think it's a surprise to see them at the top of this division. And of course, maybe more of a surprise to see right now the Dodgers third place. Don't worry, their record is still very good. But the Padres are not going anywhere. The Giants certainly are a stout team that you have to deal with. And of course, the Diamondbacks, a team that continue to score runs. But the Giants are a surprise, I think, to this degree so far so early. Robbie Ray, a good start from him yesterday. And I think that's going to be a key for them going forward. You mentioned Wilmer Flores. Flores at this stage, too, I mean, this is not really sustainable. I mean, he has 15 RBI already and 5 home runs this month. This is a huge month for anybody, let alone for Wilmer Flores. And he's done this before in his career where he's had some hot streaks. And I feel like we're used to this with Wilmer Flores in the fantasy baseball world, where you see the Wilmer Flores going crazy. You let it happen for another week on the waiver wire. Then it's that second week and you go, I got to pick this guy up. And as soon as you pick him up, it ends up going south again. I think you have a very long track record of knowing who Wilmer Flores is. I don't expect a breakout 40 home run season from Wilmer Flores. So don't be fooled by the pace. This is a hot April. And that happens sometimes. Guys just get red hot at weird times and everything gets magnified in April because it's the beginning. It's when we have the biggest focus. It's when everybody's paying attention because we've just drafted our teams. We're very passionate about it. However, Willy Adames is going to hit eventually in this lineup too. And I think the Giants are a team that's going to hang around. It's a positive ballpark factor for those pitchers, too. So I don't think the Giants are a fluke. I think Wilmer Flores' hot start might be, but I think there's enough around this ball club to suggest that they can certainly be competitive for a playoff spot with the expanded playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. 15 runs driven in. That is a lot for anybody. I mean, considering we've only played like a week and a half, 2 weeks in the season. So Spencer Strider looks like he's on the way back. I know it's not been the best start for the Braves. That goes without saying. They're going to welcome him back, and then maybe next month, Ronald Acuna Jr. That's a possibility, at least. Joe, do you think it's time to activate Strider, and if he is back next week, or do you wait a little bit?
Well, there are some rumors going around that Wednesday actually is when he would be activated. So, as you said, it's kind of difficult if you have those weekly leagues to really make sure that you have that information handy and it's set in stone before you set your lineups. And maybe you do give him that one start at the major league level, but 13 strikeouts in about 5 innings for the
Hmm.
AAA rehab start was very encouraging. And you got such a discount on Strider going into the year, too, which I thought was too much of a discount, to be honest with you. He was going as the 27th pitcher overall. And all I kept saying was constantly, what is he going to miss? Like 3 or 4 starts? Is that a big deal at the end of the day? I mean, that happens to a lot of pitchers where they have some sort of issue, will miss time on the IL. So to get an elite pitcher like him, go the 27th or 30th pitcher off the board is kind of absurd to me, especially when you consider Jacob deGrom's ADP was so much higher and he hadn't thrown 100 innings since 2019. So a lot of that did not make sense to me. And I understand there's always that concern when you have a pitcher returning from Tommy John, right? You saw Sandy Alcantara's ADP suppressed. McClanahan a little bit. Obviously, he's had a setback, but Spencer Strider so far looks terrific. And Strider right now, if you look at the standings and the Vegas lines here, he is plus 2,200 for Cy Young. April is a distant memory by the time we turn the page of Memorial Day. Will people even remember they didn't start the season very well? Can that make money? I think it can. But Craig, here's the bigger question. Is he even going to be the best Spencer in this
It's
rotation
true.
for the
It's
Atlanta
true.
Braves?
No, it's true. It's true. I think Schwellenbach and Mackenzie Gore of Washington are the two that I'd bet to win the Cy Young right now. I mean, the beginning of the season, Gore was the one that I thought would win the Cy Young, but
Really?
Schwellenbach has been great too. Yeah, I mean, Gore pitched great in spring training. He's looked good so far. I think Washington's very improved. But you mentioned DeGrom. I'm not even sure how the Rangers are leading this division. To be honest with you, Joe, I think again this is a little bit of fool's gold. I mean, it's just way too early in the season to determine this because you look up and down at the Rangers lineup, and everyone's hitting like a buck 80 in this lineup. It's very
Mm-hmm.
weird. The Angels, I know, are not going to be there in the end, but they have two players that are absolutely clubbing the ball right now. The Astros are 6-7. I did see Cam Smith, I think, hit his first home run last night. That's good news for them. They need to get some offense going with Kyle Tucker now with the Cubs playing great. The Mariners are 6-8, and then the A's are kind of who the A's are. The A's have been playing really good in DFS for the opponent going into Sacramento thus far. That's pretty much the way it's gone for them.
Yeah, it's been a very favorable home ballpark for sure for the Sacramento Athletics or whatever we're calling them today. And it's something you need to pay attention to in these markets too when you're betting and when you're looking at fantasy lineups too, because it's a very favorable ballpark for power. You've seen Rooker do well there. You've seen opposing teams come in there and do well. Nick Kurtz could be up at any moment. I know Soderstrom's been terrific, but he's even been taking some ground balls at third base. So keep an eye out because if Nick Kurtz comes into this lineup too, who's been brilliant, they're going to have a lot of thump. But you do mention the Rangers somehow find themselves at the top still. And I don't think that is a fluke. I think that you're going to see eventually some real opportunities to buy low on Marcus Semien, who's hitting under 200, Jake Berger hitting under 200. He's been dropped in some leagues. I would absolutely be looking to buy low or pick those guys up, especially if somebody drop Berger. He's got position flexibility in there. Dolis Garcia hitting about 200. This offense will come
Yeah,
around. Corey Seager got hot the other day.
he
It's a
did.
matter of time. These guys are good hitters. It will happen for them. But you do have to wonder what this pitching staff looks like outside of Eovaldi because that is the main guy. Leiter's on the IL right now. DeGrom not a good start yesterday. So I think there's some problems in that rotation. And I don't think the bullpen's all that great either.
Yeah, and Kumar Rocker, very good at throwing the ball right over the middle. Can't do that in the big leagues. Gotta move it around. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
all know nothing beats the energy of playing live roulette in a casino. But playing roulette online sure does have its perks. At the casino, you'll average 40 to 50 spins per hour. But online, you're looking at 100 to 150. The more spins, the more chance of wins. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas.
The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that rim. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple of
18.5 point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. It's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every
Hot mics. Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. Craig Mish, along with Sunday's host, Joe Pisapia, who is filling in for George Kurtz, who is currently on the road on a 2-week vacation. So we'll check in with George in a couple of weeks. Let's play a little 3 up, 3 down here from the week of fantasy baseball, Joe. And we'll start off with, I think, somebody that is very emblematic of the Milwaukee Brewers, Jackson Chourio. 3 home runs, 12 runs driven in, 323 batting average. And look, we know that Chourio is going to be a star in the big leagues. He showed that last year. But you talk about teams in general, Joe, the Brewers are like a factory of just like always beating mediocrity. Like they're playing good again this year. They got all these guys on the injured list. All these pitchers are out. It's just a great organization, man. It's like if I am drafting in an NL league or a 14-teamer, I'm just constantly taking Brewers pitchers because I just know that of the 3 or 4 that they're going to use that we don't even know about, a couple are going to be good, and that's been the case again this year. Good start for them.
Yeah, a really good start. Well, Jackson Chourio, of course, that with the 0 for 5 with the 5 strikeouts, as we call it on our show on YouTube, the Cinco Stinko is what we call that one, the 0 for 5 with 5 strikeouts. That's no platinum sombrero. That's just lazy. You needed something much better than that. But ever since then, Chourio's been terrific. He's not going to be a star. He is a star. So I just want to put that out there already. And I bet the Brewers to win this division. The Cubs are the hot team to go ahead and win this division. They were the tops of the board. And I keep coming back to the same thing, which is I like the manager. I like what they do every year, which is they find a way to win, as you were saying. Now, they lost Willie Adames. That was a big loss for them. But it feels like Chourio is growing into that star role pretty well. You'd mentioned this rotation having some problems at the beginning. Nestor Cortez is on the IL. But if you look a little deeper, too, you're going to see Brandon Woodruff is going to make his AAA start next week. That's very important. So if that goes well, maybe one more, and then he joins the rotation by the end of April. Also, Tobias Myers working his way back. And then don't forget, they've got other guys in there too. Logan Henderson's gotten off to a great start. He's already got 24 strikeouts and just 15 innings of work. Logan Henderson could be another one of these guys that ends up making more starts for the Brewers than he does for the AAA team. So that might be a deeper league stash right now if you're looking at somebody else, because Logan Henderson could be another one of those fixes. They will find a way. They always do. And Freddie Peralta looking very good too after a shaky first outing. So they've gotten rid of all the dust from that terrible Yankees series where they debuted. Ever since then, it's been clear sails for Jackson Chourio and the rest of this Brewer team.
All right, so now the Rockies, I thought we would be doing Zach Veen on the show here today, but we're not there yet. We're going to have to wait to see what happens next week. Rockies are sort of still pathetic here, unfortunately, Joe. Brenton Doyle is the shining light on the Rockies, batting at the top, usually first or second, 3 home runs, 11 runs driven in, 364 batting average, great defender, is going to play every single day. And Joe, I got to tell you, I'm a little melancholy over the Rockies. Every year back when we were doing these shows 10, 15 years ago, you could just count on drafting a few Rockies, playing 4 or 5 of them in your fantasy lineup because you can't even do that anymore, man. Like they don't even have more than like 1 or 2 guys to play in their everyday lineup. I still think they do have, Tovar. They've got a couple of players. Or maybe I'm being a little facetious here, but Doyle's definitely at the top. But these are not the Rockies of 2013, 14, 15, where they're at home, get all your Rockies in. Now it's like, which Rockies do I play? At least Doyle is one of them.
Doyle's definitely one of them. And some people were suspect whether or not he could carry over last year's good work, and he has. But Zach Veen hopefully will help things along. Very dynamic player. He's got power, he's got speed. He's very volatile. I've seen him play in person a couple times myself. Maturity issues. Yeah, you could say that about him, but he's explosive in the good ways and the bad ways. I just don't think that the Rockies as an organization have been run well for a very long time. And on top of that, they're in an environment that makes it almost impossible. So until this team gets a domed stadium and a controlled environment, I don't think the Colorado Rockies are ever going to find themselves in a World Series. I really just don't.
You're really putting yourself out there, Joe. Yeah, I would agree.
Well, I mean, but some people always believe, we can hit our way there. We can do this. No, you can't. I think they've proven over the years, there's no strategy that works. You can't bludgeon people to death. You can't do any of that other stuff. I think at this point, they have to really structurally look at what they're doing as an organization and say, look, this isn't working. We need to find another way to somehow balance things out because we don't know how to draft for this organization.
They've been trying, man. They've tried so many different pitching strategies, and the thing with the Rockies that's I mean, I don't know if it's the word is troubling or not, but they sell out like all their games. So it's like, okay, like people are still coming to the games, so we must be doing something right here. It's a great environment to go see a baseball game. All right, Joe. So here is the surprise name of the season. I mean, maybe Soderstrom is a big surprise too. I don't want to eliminate him, and I know that he's been fantastic, but Kyron Paris of the Angels. Okay, 4 home runs this week, 5 runs driven in, 409 batting average. I'm sure on your shows on Fantasy Pros, like this is the name that everyone's talking about here. Maybe we thought a few years ago we'd be doing this with Joe Adell. I know Joe Adell did homer, by the way, this week too. But Kyron Paris is not a name that we heard a lot about in the draft season. I definitely.
No, it's not. And I think there's a great debate going on here. Let me take you back to 2016. A name, Tyler White. Remember him? 5 homers and 16 RBI for the Houston Astros in April. Everyone thought they would get their new first baseman, right? Their new lock and load guy. It's an April illusion. Now, Kyron Paris has worked on his body. He's physically different. He's worked on his swing with Aaron Judge's swing coach. So I give him a lot of credit, and he's a great kid. I'm rooting for Kyron Paris. But he's also got 300-plus minor league games under his belt, and he's got a career slugging percentage under 400 and a career batting average of 237 in those games. So color me skeptical that we all of a sudden have made such a dramatic change with this player. Now, it's happened before. If you recall, Whit Merrifield a few years ago was an underwhelming minor league player, made some adjustments to his swing, and became a really productive fantasy player. However, I'm not 100% sold on Kyron Paris. If you have him right now, great. You ride the wave, but I don't think this is sustainable. I hope it is. I want to be proven wrong, but when you look at the minor league track record, I think once you start pounding this guy in with fastballs and just weak changeups and breaking stuff on the outside, I think things will come back as the league adjusts to what he's doing right now.
Would you trade Mike Trout right now if somebody made a trade offer?
If you did it last year at this time, you made out, right? I think you would. I think you'd look for it and see what you can get. And if you can get good value, you consider it strongly. It's a great question. Would you, Craig?
I think I have to. Yeah. I mean, he's just been hurt too much, but I wonder if the move to right field changes things for him. Coming up next, 3 went, 3 up. We'll go 3 down next.
Did you know sports books tend to draw up tighter bet lines for events that get even more bettors, like championship games or major matchups. My tip? Try betting on less popular sports. You might have a better shot at beating those odds. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
They won the game, and a lot of people, I think, are, prematurely writing them off. Like, I heard a lot of people say they're not even making the playoffs this year.
What I give them credit for right now, Scott, I'm not going to pencil them to win the division yet. Let's see how they do. What I give the Red Sox credit for, and this sounds like silly, I give them credit for actually trying this year.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Okay, what tools can you use to measure those things a bit? And that's where you have like force plates and 3D motion and launch monitors, things like that. But that's all just sort of like measuring what's happening. That doesn't necessarily explain why one guy's really good and another guy's not really good. And that's where there's still kind of like this ongoing, how do you like continue to do research to understand that better? And I think that's going to last well past my lifetime.
The Smiley Show.
Welcome back to our torpedo bats discussion. Just kidding. I'm not doing that here on the show. I mean, was there anything more overblown than that conversation last week? I mean, Joe, Yahoo, is this really true that Yahoo was putting when players use torpedo bats in their fantasy lineup? Are you serious? Yahoo can't figure out how to make Ohtani a hitter and pitcher, but they're putting torpedo bat by their name. Oh my gosh, what are we doing here? I mean, look.
Well done.
From day one, I knew this thing was going to be all about nothing, man. I mean, the hitter has to still be the hitter, and I am sure that it's going to help hitters hit, but this is not like injecting something into your butt. And by the way, Jazz, who's had a really tough week and has not hit well over the last couple of weeks, is going to be fine. He's just going through a moment here, and I'm not concerned. But I'm glad that we're going to put this to bed pretty soon. I know that Aaron Judge tried to put it to bed immediately. Pete Alonso immediately said, forget all this. This is not going to happen. But if it, mentally, Joe, I mean, that's where I see it really helping, is that if you feel more comfortable because you feel like you're going to land the ball on that part of the bat because there's more wood. Yes, I agree with that. But I don't think at the end of the season we're going to say because of the torpedo bat, look at all these guys who used it that led the league in home runs and led the league in runs driven in. I just don't believe that.
No, but the mental side is very important. And I think that's something that for any baseball player, right? The mental fatigue of a season is so much that if it gives you any sort of mental edge, you take it. And it's a tiny ballpark. You got off to a good start with the torpedo bats and a bad, at the time, an injured Milwaukee rotation, right? So a lot of things to take advantage of there. And if you look at the numbers last year, they were pretty solid at Yankee Stadium for Jazz Chisholm. So I would imagine, as you said, he'll get back on pace as we go through here in the next week.
All right, so now let's go to the A's, and the A's are scoring some runs in that park, Joe, but the opponent seems to be doing a lot more damage. Brent Rooker, who I think will be just fine. This is one of those where we just highlight someone that I have no concerns with. He hit a $129. I think he tripled last night, if I'm not mistaken. Home run, 1 run driven in. Middle of the order guy. No concerns for me. How about you?
Zero concerns. In fact, he's one of the best buy lows out there. So if you could flip a pitcher that's outperforming for you and you have a bunch of depth, it's a great time to make a move for a power bat like Brent Rooker. Love the ballpark, like this lineup quite a bit. Zero concerns about him. He is a guy that could hit 35 to 40 home runs still this year, even with a slow start in April.
O'Neal Cruz is maybe a little bit of a different story, Joe. I think we got to watch him a little bit, not because of the numbers, but because of the injury that he has. A finger injury has kept him out of the lineup the last 2 days. I don't know that I'm going to get a lineup before the end of the show here on Pittsburgh. He has 7 stolen bases. He's going to steal 40, 50 bases this season. So no matter what the other numbers look like, he's still going to be extremely valuable in fantasy. He has not played well in center. The Pirates look like a little bit of a disheveled team, to be honest with you, Joe, at the top of the season. I'm a little worried that things go south for them quick. But at least for the time being, going into, as you've been talking about, setting your lineup for a weekly league next week, I mean, Cruz has got to be back in the lineup today or tomorrow, or I don't think you could play him next week.
No, and going back to the Jazz Chisholm conversation too, when you're talking about the mental aspects of the game, right? I don't think he's handling the transition to center field very well. He still looks very shaky in the outfield, so that's a bit of a concern too, because does he continue to bring that to the plate? Then you put this finger injury on top of that. So there's a lot of questions about O'Neal Cruz. The Pirates are a team that really needs to hit on a guy like O'Neal Cruz because they have not had a lot of great prolific offensive players come through that system. They've had a lot of pitchers. They still have a lot of pitchers and depth there. Should they have flipped one to the Orioles for a guy like Kobe Mayo? Probably, because that would be something that would help both organizations. But right now, the Pirates seem a team that continues to look very rough at the plate. And when you have Tommy Pham and Andrew McCutchen and the guys who are approaching 40, that's probably not the best look for your lineup.
Yeah, I'm not that confident in Pittsburgh outside of the few studs that they have in that staff. All right, my ace of the week in fantasy baseball as far as pitching is concerned, I'm going to go to Joe Ryan of the Minnesota Twins. The Twins pitching is starting to come along here, although Pablo Lopez got hurt. 7 innings pitched, no earned runs, 4 strikeouts, no walks. Joe, who's your ace of the week?
Ace of the week is Kevin Gossman, who I have to say I ended up with in my home league. It was an auction draft, and I started bidding on Gossman, saying, "Okay, let me see where this goes." And then I kind of got stuck with him, and that happens sometimes. And I thought, well, on the cheap, I'll take a shot on Kevin Gossman, see if he can get back to what he was. 10 strikeouts, 8 innings this past week, very good. Vlad signs his extension too, so that's very good. So Kevin Gossman hopefully gets back to Kevin Gossman form because when he was at his peak the last couple of years, one of the best strikeout pitchers in baseball.
Yeah, would agree. All right, we'll take a quick time out here on Fantasy Sports Today. Our coverage of the NFL Draft continues here on the show today and will next week. Joe and I will take a look at the first round and some potential props as well.
Did you know sportsbooks tend to draw up tighter bet lines for events that get even more bettors, like championship games or major matchups? My tip? Try betting on less popular sports. You might have a better shot at beating those odds. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
They won the game, and a lot of people, I think, are, prematurely writing them off. Like, I heard a lot of people say they're not even making the playoffs this year.
But I give them credit for right now, Scott. I'm not going to pencil them to win the division yet. Let's see how they do. What I give the Red Sox credit for, and this sounds like silly, I give them credit for actually trying this year.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Okay, what tools can you use to measure those things a bit? And that's where you have like force plates and 3D motion and launch monitors, things like that. But that's all just sort of like measuring what's happening. That doesn't necessarily explain why one guy's really good and another guy's not really good. And that's where there's still kind of like this ongoing, how do you like continue to do research to understand that better? And I think that's going to last well past my lifetime.
The Smiley Show.
kind of funny this time of the year. We have such big sports to cover here at SportsGrid that I sort of feel bad for Ben Stevens and Kevin Walsh and all of our and Donnie, all of our big event coverage, because they don't get a break. Like the NCAA tournament ended, and then it's the Masters, and then the Masters ended, and it's the draft, and the draft ends, and it's the NBA playoffs. So for them, I guess July can't come soon enough. For me and Joe, we just do the shows here, and we just go right by it. But draft order looks like it's pretty much going to be set. It seems like the executives are saying they don't expect a lot of trades on draft day, which you usually hear the opposite of. So could be the case that this is the draft, the top 10, with, of course, Tennessee at 1, Cleveland at 2. Cleveland just took Flacco off the board in free agency, so he'll be the backup or maybe starter this year. Who knows? The Giants, Patriots, Jaguars, Raiders at 6, Jets, Panthers, Saints, and Bears. So offensively, Joe, I think this draft is probably fair to say from fantasy and dynasty. It's a fair average draft, I think, in terms of talent. We've seen a lot worse. We've seen a lot better. But I think this is going to be at least one that's down the middle for fantasy owners.
Yeah, sometimes these kind of drafts surprise you, right? The drafts that sneak up on you, the ones people weren't saying, oh, this is not the greatest class, and it turns out to be very productive. And then ones where we say, oh my goodness, what an abundance of riches, right? And it ends up being very disappointing. This is also the first time in modern NFL history, as of right now, that every team has their own first-round pick. That never happens. It just does not happen. So it's so bizarre. And when we started doing our draft coverage of Fantasy Pros, I started looking at it and saying, this feels so weird. Every team has its own. This must be wrong. I couldn't possibly. I had to keep looking, and of course, this was true. So from that sense, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of trades night 1. I do anticipate a lot more night 2. And I don't know what this rest is you're talking about, because I'm hosting 4 hours live of the NFL draft and another hour on the Friday. So this rest you're talking about, that's you somewhere on a beach. But if you're looking right now, it does feel like Cam Ward's the guy who's going to go first to the Tennessee Titans. That feels like a lock. Vegas thinks that too. The number 2 pick seems a little bit more up for grabs. And Cam Ward, many people would say, well, he would have been probably closer to maybe J.J. McCarthy last year, maybe give or take. That's sort of what you're looking at, a player who's got a lot of talent, can develop in the right situation. Is Tennessee the right situation? No, of course not. But that's who has the number 1 pick, so that's who it's going to be. So we'll see if he can somehow get there, get some of the weapons to turn things around here. We'll find out. But Cam Ward, it's not the greatest landing spot. It's not a place known for growing great quarterbacks over the years. So that's always a big problem too. The environment is everything. And we've learned that whether you are a good prospect or a bad prospect in the NFL, It's about the environment you land in. Cleveland at number 2. Right now, some people think Shedeur Sanders. Other people say you go with the best quote unquote player in the draft, the unicorn, which is Travis Hunter. So if you go with Travis Hunter, you're getting wide receiver plus or cornerback plus, depending on how you want to play him. I don't know if the Joe Flacco sighting makes any difference here. Shedeur Sanders is a player that some people are high on, other people don't like. He's a very polarizing quarterback. I think he is okay, and I think in the right situation, Shedeur Sanders can succeed. I like Stefanski as a head coach way more than I like what they got going on in Tennessee. If you were at the number 2 pick, would you be taking Shedeur Sanders, another shot at quarterback, or would you be taking Travis Hunter, probably one of the most special talents we've ever seen coming into the NFL draft?
Yeah, I mean, I don't care who goes at 2 or 3 as long as Sanders goes in one of those spots. I mean, to me, I watched him play the entire season and the season before at Colorado, and I know maybe the talent around him was superior to some other teams, yes. I also know that he didn't play the best teams in his conference, yes, but in watching those games, he wasn't the reason why they would lose any game. Their defense couldn't stop anybody. So I don't know what has happened in the last 2 months to make this guy fall because of personality or whatever it is. I think it's a bunch of nonsense. And if the Giants pass on him, then shame on them. That's why that franchise is going to be toast if they don't take him. Because if Cleveland doesn't take him, that's fine. But the Giants then need to, in my opinion, at 3. And then beyond that, New England has their quarterback, so does Jacksonville. And then, of course, we get to the Raiders. Now, this is where things get interesting, Joe, because I know that you have a prop that you like. I do love Ashton Genty and watched him play a ton. Every game I think I watched him play at Boise State. I am surprised that any running back these days would go this high in the NFL draft. And so that's, the prop that you're alluding to here does make some sense here.
Yeah, well, Genty is look. Bijan Robinson, just a couple years ago, also had some huge draft capital, right? He was a top 10 pick, so I don't think Genty is going to slip outside the top 10. What's going to be really interesting though is if Travis Hunter does go at 2, the best player on the board is Abdul Carter, right? Potentially. Now, you could take Shedeur Sanders if you're the Giants. The other thing is if the Giants really don't necessarily want Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders goes 2, and that's why they've gone into this quarterback spree that they've gone into this offseason, does that mean the Giants are the team that trade out? Because I'm sure there's a lot of teams like the 49ers who would like to move up to take an Abdul Carter. So that is where the draft gets really interesting. If the 2 quarterbacks go back to back, I think the Giants would just stay there and take Travis Hunter, to be honest with you. But they could be tempted to trade down a couple picks in order to, acquire more capital. Is it the right move? Not necessarily, but that's going to be very interesting there. Las Vegas could take Genty. I think that's something that's very much on the board. The Jets, I think, would serve themselves well by going for an offensive tackle, especially now that they brought in Justin Fields. You want to protect him. You want to give a good offensive line. Membo might be there. Will Johnson could be there too, depending on what the Patriots do or don't do. If Abdul Carter falls to 4 somehow for the Patriots and Mike Vrabel, that is an enormous win for this defense. It's already had a really good turnaround in the offseason. They went on a spending spree. They had money to burn, and they burned it on some really good players. I like that a lot. Now, when we get to Carolina Panthers, that's a team that I think is going to go defense and go defense early. Right now, you get plus 100 for them to take a defensive lineman or an edge. And to me, maybe Jalen Walker is that guy, but I also feel very strongly that they would be looking at Walter Nolan from Ole Miss, the defensive tackle there. They need defense in the worst way. Worst team in the NFL last year against the run. It starts in the trenches. So to me, the defensive tackle goes there. Craig, do you see any scenario where the Carolina Panthers don't start their draft on defense? Because I don't.
Yeah, see, for me, this is where I got to lean on you because I'm not that deep in the woods yet. So I'll just go with your.
He's still
your
watching the
opinion on that.
Masters. Everybody, that's what's going on.
Yeah,
here.
I'm not there. I am definitely not there. But let me go to this prop that you like with Denver. So explain this one to me. Denver Broncos draft a running back first. Does that mean? That doesn't mean that they're the team to take the first running back. It means that they take a running back with their first pick. Is that correct? Or is
That's correct. And I think that it can mean one of two things. Either they do move up some draft capital and take an Ashton Genty, which I don't think is likely, or they just sit where they are at 20. And we've done a lot of mock drafts where Omarion Hampton is just floating around there, and he would be a fantastic 3-down back for this offense. You saw they jettisoned Javonte Williams. Jaleel McLaughlin is an undersized back. He's not the answer. Plus 140 for them to take a running back. And I think if you look to from a fantasy standpoint, if Genty doesn't land in the right space, let's say Jacksonville takes him, or even worse, the Jets decide they just can't pass on him, right? Which would be crazy. But then we would be in this mix with a bunch of other running backs and Breece Hall, whose contract expires not that long from now. I don't see that happening, but there's scenarios where the Jets are the Jets. But Omarion Hampton at 20 makes a lot of sense for the Denver Broncos, and I could see him landing there, and I could see them looking for a real 3-down running back for that offense to help support Bo Nix, who had a really good first season. Also, another one on the board that's interesting besides the Panthers and the Denver Broncos, the Cowboys to look at a wide receiver first as well, plus 135. Ted McMillan could slip there, but I think Matthew Golden might be the better fit. Matthew Golden out of Texas, my favorite wide receiver coming into this NFL draft. I could see them looking for somebody else besides CeeDee Lamb to throw the football to, because right now that depth chart is a disaster. So keep an eye on Matthew Golden props, especially to the Cowboys specifically. You can make a lot of money on that. Keep that kid in Texas at home, and I think all of a sudden Dallas Cowboy offense could bounce back in a big way. So that's kind of the early picks there of what things might look like. Yeah. But NFL draft, always a lot of moving parts. You never know what's going to happen. That's the fun of it.
Yeah. My favorite pick is the same one that I pick every single year. My favorite prop, over on whatever quarterback props there are, and just take the money at the end. You'll be very happy in the first round. This is always going to be more than you think. So 3.5, I think, is the number. At least 4. Again. We'll be right back.
Did you know sportsbooks tend to draw up tighter bet lines for events that get even more bettors, like championship games or major matchups. My tip? Try betting on less popular sports. You might have a better shot at beating those odds. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
They won the game, and a lot of people, I think, are, prematurely writing them off. Like, I heard a lot of people say they're not even making the playoffs this year.
What I give them credit for right now, Scott, I'm not going to pencil them to win the division yet. Let's see how they do. What I give the Red Sox credit for, and this sounds like silly, I give them credit for actually trying this year.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Okay, what tools can you use to measure those things a bit? And that's where you have like force plates and 3D motion and launch monitors, things like that. But that's all just sort of like measuring what's happening. That doesn't necessarily explain why one guy's really good and another guy's not really good. And that's where there's still kind of like this ongoing, how do you like continue to do research to understand that better? And I think that's going to last well past my lifetime.
The Smiley Show.
All right, welcome back. Back to baseball we go. Craig Mish, Joe Pisapia filling in for George Kurtz today, and Joe will be back tomorrow with Matt Stryker on the Sunday morning edition of Fantasy Sports. Today, let's take a look at some of the two-start pitchers for those of you who are playing in the head-to-head leagues. This is really obviously very important for those of you who are playing in those points leagues, etc. We'll start off with some of the pitchers going Monday and Saturday. Actually, there's just one that I see here on the board. We got Clay Holmes of the New York Mets at Minnesota, and then Saturday at home against St. Louis. Holmes is probably one of those pitchers that could potentially be out there, but Joe, what's happening with him is the strikeout numbers are starting to pile up here a little bit. Of course, he was a reliever, so he's not going to go that deep into the games, but I kind of like what I have seen thus far. He's also had a little bit of bad luck with some bad defense, and these are some pretty good starts. I mean, Minnesota's offense is not a juggernaut anymore. I personally think the Cardinals at the end of the year are going to be one of the worst teams in baseball. I know it hasn't hit yet, but I think they're going to hit a reset at some point this season. So, I mean, I don't mind this at all for those two starts. I just don't know how many leagues he'd be available in. You probably could speak to that more than me.
Well, right now he's not available in a lot of leagues. It's whether or not you want to start him. He is rostered in 92% of leagues on CBS, which is typically a good gauge. And as you look, the ERA is a little inflated because he hasn't thrown 6 innings yet. And I think that's smart. I think in April, because he was a converted reliever, you want to go very slowly with him, especially in this first month. So I don't care if he feels good. You're kind of limiting that pitch count. You're making sure that he gets to the 5th inning. Okay, and then we'll figure it out through there, because the Mets have their eyes set on the playoffs, and you want a guy like Clay Holmes available then. So I think babying him in April is very smart. These two matchups at Minnesota, I think, is a pretty good one. You're still missing some pieces in that Minnesota lineup, and obviously some pitchers too on the IL, right? You've got Pablo Lopez on the IL. St. Louis, the worst ERA as a team right now, and they're moving to a 6-man rotation, as if adding another pitcher to this mix somehow is going to make it better. I don't know, but I would take my chances there with these two starts. The Mets are a very good offense. They're going to put runs on the board, so I feel pretty confident here about Clay Holmes this week. I do want to just point out, that last start we had the 10 strikeouts. One was against the Marlins. Back-to-back games against them. So 2 of these 3 outings against the Marlins, the one where he really did struggle was against Houston, a much better lineup. But I think these are 2 favorable matchups I would still take.
All right. I do like our next pitcher a lot, Jeffrey Springs. I liked him a lot in Tampa. I do like him with the A's. It's been a little bit uneven. It's really hard to pitch in Sacramento. But I think for you to get him against the White Sox, Joe, even though he's got a tougher matchup against the Brewers, is worth rolling the dice here for, because that's a premium matchup against Chicago. I mean, you mentioned the Marlins. I'd rather face the White Sox right now. Like they had just come in a losing streak of, was it 8 again? 8 in a row, something like that.
So bad.
So I'd be in on this. And look, the Brewers do have 2 or 3 special hitters in their lineup, but I think that this is a solid 2-start pitcher here.
It is. I think what you do here, and even though these games are at home, so there's danger of the home run ball, you look at that White Sox lineup where they're just terrible. I know Chase Mydroth came up, so he's probably floating around on waiver wires. He's going to be the pretty much everyday shortstop. In points leagues, he's very good in OBP leagues too, a guy with a very high on-base percentage. So consider picking him up if he's floating around the waiver wire. I think he can help you there. He's going to walk a ton. But to your point, Jeffrey Springs still has, 16 strikeouts, 7 walks, 2-to-1 ratio there. ERA sitting at 4. It is a tough ballpark for home runs. There's no doubt about that right now. But I like Jeffrey Springs too. I would take my chances here. I'm starting it because of the White Sox, and then I'm hoping I can get out of Dodge with at least a quality start and maybe some more strikeouts at best against the Brewers. And hopefully Jackson Churio doesn't take him yard 2 or 3 times. That would be the hope. But I think Springs is another guy that I feel pretty good about starting this week.
All right, one of the bigger ads in fantasy last week or so has got to be this guy, Nick Lodolo on the Reds. He's been lights out, so there's really nothing to talk about this week. Even though there's one matchup against Baltimore, Lodolo has been one of the best pitchers in the NL thus far. Takes on Seattle, takes on the Orioles. I mean, you're picking him up not just for 2 starts, but maybe for the rest of the season. So far, so good.
Yeah, he's already rostered in 90% of leagues on CBS too. So if anything, maybe people don't realize how good he's been and you can get him as a piece of the trade. He was one of my favorite pieces going into the year in terms of potential sleeper pitchers, because there weren't a ton of them, but Lodolo was one of them because he was a high-end prospect. It took him a while to get going, and then the injuries started to happen there. But sometimes the lefties take a little bit longer in the pressure cooker. Whatever's happening here, health is much better. That's the biggest important thing here, and Lodolo looks great so far. Seattle lineup has got some strikeouts in it. We know that. And then the second matchup is a pretty good one as well. So you're looking at Seattle, and look, Baltimore has got a good lineup, but Baltimore, again, sometimes is struggling. And if you look at the other side too, Cincinnati struggles to score runs. So it's going to be tight for him to get a win. They're all or nothing. They'll score 10 runs or 0. That's where they're at right now. So that's kind of tough, that up and down for Cincinnati. However, I do think that you feel good about Lodolo, especially because of who the Baltimore Orioles are going to be throwing against them too, because that rotation is not good.
Yeah, disappointing start for their pitchers. All right, Merrill Kelly's had a couple of good starts, one tough one. He's in Miami this Tuesday here, where I am, against the Marlins, and then Sunday against the Cubs. But I'm going to guess I'm a little off here on my percentages on CBS. I'm feeling like some of these guys are available. They're not. I'm going to guess Merrill Kelly's not available, though, in any league.
It's funny, less than the others, 80%. So 82% is where he's at. See, my problem with Merrill Kelly is that, if he doesn't get you the W, he's not helping you too much. He's got 9 walks, 7 strikeouts. That whip is 1.6. I actually am a little scared, especially with the second start in Chicago, because depending on that wind, what's going on that day, I think this is one where if I have better options, I might be looking elsewhere.
Okay, and then finally, Washington Nationals. We got Jake Irvin taking on Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, and then a start in Colorado. So probably going to pass that.
I'm going to pass too. Starting Colorado can never be something you can count on. The Pittsburgh one is tempting. I think if you're in daily transaction leagues, though, you might look at that Pittsburgh start too, see who that matchup is against, and maybe try to take advantage of that. But yeah, it's still tough to want to start anybody in Colorado. It's just never going to change, Greg, until they put a roof on that thing.
No, and that's not going to happen either, as long as they keep selling those games out in Denver. All right, coming up next, we'll talk about some potential streaming options. One player coming over in a trade with Milwaukee. Start there, and we'll get into the rest of them next, so stay with us.
Did you know sportsbooks tend to draw up tighter bet lines for events that get even more bettors, like championship games or major matchups? My tip? Try betting on less popular sports. You might have a better shot at beating those odds. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
They won the game, and a lot of people, I think, are, prematurely writing them off. Like, I heard a lot of people say they're not even making the playoffs this year.
But I give them credit for right now, Scott. I'm not going to pencil them to win the division yet. Let's see how they do. What I give the Red Sox credit for, and this sounds like silly, I give them credit for actually trying this year.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Okay, what tools can you use to measure those things a bit? And that's where you have like force plates and 3D motion and launch monitors, things like that. But that's all just sort of like measuring what's happening. That doesn't necessarily explain why one guy's really good and another guy's not really good. And that's where there's still kind of like this ongoing, how do you like continue to do research to understand that better? And I think that's going to last well past my lifetime.
The Smiley Show.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports today here on SportsGrid. Kind of a fascinating trade, Joe, to see Quinn Priester dealt to the Milwaukee Brewers. I think the Brewers, at this point, got to call it what it is. They've got a lot of pitchers injured. You mentioned Woodruff potentially coming back, but man, to only have Peralta in the starting rotation from the beginning of the season, 2 weeks in, is insane. He starts Tuesday against Detroit. Joe, the Tigers don't necessarily scare you a ton with their offense, but I think we're going to look back at the end of the season as them being one of the better overall teams in baseball. I think they're going to do exactly what they did last year. I don't know, man. I think they may end up winning 90 games, win the division, make the playoffs. Hinch is a great manager. So this is kind of a tough one for me. It's like almost I feel like a pass maybe and just wait to see, maybe a pickup and stash or something like that.
Yeah, it's a pass for me. I am taking the Detroit Tigers at their face value because Torkelson's been terrific too. Colt Keith coming off a good game. Kerry Carpenter looking solid so far this year, having a high OPS. We look, the big offseason signing for them was Gleyber Torres, and he hasn't really contributed yet, right? He's dealing with an injury. So the Detroit Tigers came on strong last year. A lot of people thought it might be a mirage, but it's not. I think it's finally all of those guys that they've drafted and put, the Riley Greens of the world in all of this talent in the basket is finally starting to figure things out. And I think that's very exciting, especially in the rotation too. Casey Mize gotten off to a great start too. Quinn Priester is not a guy that I believe in. This is a guy who has a career 6 ERA in the major leagues. The minor league track record isn't good. Career ERA of 4. I hated this signing because I knew it was going to suppress some of the talent that I want to see. Like I mentioned, Logan Henderson, 3 starts, 14 innings, 24 strikeouts. This is a guy who's dominating right now at the AAA level. I'd like to see up, but I don't know how long he is for this rotation. That being said, you have Nestor Cortez who's out, so it's just Freddie Peralta right now, Tyler Alexander, Quinn Priester, Jose Quintana, Chad Patrick. That's not exactly the rotation you want to be throwing out there. So help is on the way. Myers, Woodruff, Quinn Priester might not be long for this rotation, but he's not long for my lineup either this week against Detroit.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, Walker Buehler. What do you make of Buehler's start thus far? The Red Sox not looking so great. Tuesday at Tampa Bay, which of course is at Steinbrenner Field, which is playing fair, I think, for the most part. Nothing too crazy for a spring training facility. Rays have not played great either. Red Sox have been really hit or miss. Some games they look fantastic. Some days they can't get out of their own way. I think you kind of sort of have no choice Like, if you drafted Buehler where you did, you probably paid a little bit more than you wanted to. I think you probably have to start him. I don't know.
I do start him. I actually like this start too. If you look at the strikeout to walk ratio, that's the most important thing. 14 strikeouts, just 2 walks. So the control has been there. Now, I understand, the ERA is at 5.74. The FIP is at 4.45. It's early in the season. You mentioned the defense. That's a big problem for the Red Sox right now. Who would have thought they'd get worse defensively when they moved Devers off third base to DH? Somehow they found a way to do it. They've got 14 errors already. It's a big problem right now for the Boston Red Sox. So I'm still taking a shot at Walker Buehler this week at Tampa. Tampa's not a big-time lineup, really. Junior Caminero is the one guy you guys got to avoid in that lineup, but I'm going to go and start Walker Buehler, and shame on the Orioles for not taking a shot on Walker Buehler. That's exactly the kind of guy you should have taken a shot on in the offseason. Instead, they look at Sagano, they look at Charlie Morton again, and this is why they find themselves where they are.
Yeah, weird way to operate with the pitching. I have to agree. All right, Osvaldo Bido has been piling up the strikeouts for the A's. Can he pile a win here on the White Sox? I think this is probably a yes.
It is a yes. I feel better about Bido than I do feel about Quinn Priester. I'll be honest with you. So far in the year, 15 innings for him, 14 strikeouts, 6 walks. The whip is a little high. He is, giving up some hits, but I think, the 18 hits and 15 innings so far against the White Sox. I think you're willing to pretty much stream anybody against the White Sox, Craig. That's what it feels like to me. So I'll take my shot here, and it's in Chicago as well. So you don't have to quite worry about that Sacramento ballpark being so tough.
Yep. Finally, I'm not going to personally pick on the Marlins. I ain't going to do that. That's for sure. But I will say this. No matter what happens, anytime a team plays a game before 1 o'clock on the East Coast, it's generally a very low-scoring team swinging immediately to get out of town game, and that's what Eduardo Rodriguez has in front of him. In Miami Thursday, 12:10 Eastern game, earliest game Marlins will play all season, and the Diamondbacks as well. So, what? Nothing in the 7th, probably, Joe, here?
Yeah, you take the strikeouts too. He's got 20 strikeouts already. Rodriguez off to a good start there. Take the Ks, hope for the quality start, and then you move on. Maybe you get the W2 against the Marlins.
All right, we'll take a break, come back next. Injuries taking hold of the league in a big way. Don't go away.
Did you know sportsbooks tend to draw up tighter bet lines for events that get even more bettors, like championship games or major matchups? My tip? Try betting on less popular sports. You might have a better shot at beating those odds. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
They won the game, and a lot of people, I think, are, prematurely writing them off. Like, I heard a lot of people say they're not even making the playoffs this year.
What I give them credit for right now, Scott, I'm not going to pencil them to win the division yet. Let's see how they do. What I give the Red Sox credit for, and this sounds like silly, I give them credit for actually trying this year.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Okay, what tools can you use to measure those things a bit? And that's where you have like force plates and 3D motion and launch monitors, things like that. But that's all just sort of like measuring what's happening. That doesn't necessarily explain why one guy's really good and another guy's not really good. And that's where there's still kind of like this ongoing, how do you like continue to do research to understand that better? And I think that's going to last well past my lifetime.
The Smiley